Brandon Sanderson doesn't have much left to prove. As an author, the man is well regarded in the fantasy space for both completing the epic high fantasy series known as The Wheel of Time, and by being incredibly prolific in the fantasy genre through his own work like Mistborn, Warbreaker, and most importantly, the Stormlight Archive, a series that is especially notable given that it is my favorite ongoing fantasy series right now. Check it out. But beyond those literary achievements though, Sanderson is also renowned for writing at an incredibly fast rate and has lately released one major novel a year alongside a multitude of side projects. And as far as epic fantasy authors go, he just seems to work quite a lot, all to the point that I'm honestly a little concerned for him. Like, I just want Sanderson to give himself a break sometime. Stormlight 5 can wait another year if it needs to. That's okay, because he needs to go outside. But then again, I'm not too mad about Sanderson's work ethic. If Sanderson so desires to produce new and high quality books at such a fast rate that it makes George R.R. Martin soil himself in fear, he can be my guest, because the wait between new installments of a fan favorite Sanderson series is agonizing, especially for people who are still young, unlike me. Because if he waits too long to finish those young adult series, those aforementioned young adult fans turn into old adults in front of your very eyes, because that's how time works. This brings us to Sanderson's recent big series Skyward, which is Sanderson's foray into young adult sci-fi. For a little background info, the series was originally planned as a trilogy, but was extended into 4 parts, with the first novel Skyward kicking the series off in 2018, its follow-up Starsight releasing in 2019, then the third book Cytonic released last year in 2020 along with several other necessary novellas, and the fourth and final book, Defiant, is still being written. And through the books already released, the Skyward series has received much fanfare, praise that is really well deserved because it is really damn good. So good, in fact, that I binged and got caught up on the whole series in the span of a week because it's just that damn terrific, and is so for a multitude of reasons. It features a very relatable and fun female main protagonist, it has some deep and intuitive sci-fi world building, where each book reveals new narrative revelations regarding the universe the series takes place in. The books have surprisingly depthful themes about cowardice and bravery. It has those fun flight Top Gun style character dynamics, and the Star Wars style outer space dogfights are an absolute blast to read. And with that, the Skyward series is a page turner and very engrossing. It has exemplary character focused storytelling that is enhanced by its action, and for that, I adore it. To explain why the Skyward series is so good, let's do a brief overview of the story. The plot is set on the barren planet of Detritus, which is a place where a human space cruiser called the Defiant, filled with thousands upon thousands of people, fled to for unknown reasons. Were they running from an enemy? Were they just trying to avoid calls about their space cruiser's extended warranty? Because if so, goals. But regardless of the answer, the passengers on the Defiant had to contend with a new problem once on Detritus. In fact, humanity was attacked from outer space by an alien race known as the Krell shortly after their arrival at Detritus, and humanity was hit hard, resulting in the humans on Detritus losing much of their knowledge and technology, and were forced to live a primitive life in the caves and live off scraps, Tony Stark style. It was bleak, to say the least. Yet, with that said, the humans of Detritus had improved their society over the course of a few generations, to the point that the ancestors of the Defiant have built a military-focused society and have developed space jets that can combat the Krell, which is important because the Krell have become ever more dangerous and attack more often as the years have gone on. And due to this, the Defiant's most valuable military assets are its pilots, the brave souls who risk death in order to protect the remnants of human society from a Krell invasion coming from outer space. This brings us to our main character, Spensa Nightshade, a 17-year-old girl who has dreamt of being a pilot for her whole life. A dream that is personal. See, her dad was a hotshot pilot in the Defiant's fleet back in the day. In fact, he was their ace, but during the Battle of Alta, a battle that is remembered as the greatest in the Defiant's history, he cowardly tried to desert his post and was shot down and killed by his flightmates. And due to her dad's cowardice, Spensa is an outcast in the Defiant's community and desires to prove herself as a heroic pilot, even though the Defiant's military brass hinders Spensa's goals at every turn. And with that, Spensa must overcome the Defiant military command's obstructions and an increasingly murderous Krell in order to truly prove herself as a worthy, courageous pilot. The story is really good, and much of this is due to Spensa's likability as the main protagonist. As a character, Spensa is spunky, tenacious, and espouses humorous bravado about overcoming all her enemies in glorious battle. battle. But this is a facade, because deep down, she is vulnerable. See, despite her appearance of often hilarious overconfidence, she is in emotional pain. In fact, the loss of her father and her nature as the persona non grata has taken a toll on her. Firstly, because the Defiant military obstructs her pilot training every chance they get, and secondly, Spence's flightmates don't trust her due to her father's cowardly actions, which her flightmates' trust is important seeing as they go into combat with her. And as a result of all these obstacles, it is easy to empathize with Spencer and want her to succeed. Even beyond how she spouts memorable and chuckle-worthy barbs, we the reader want to see her overcome her mistreatment by the Defiant military, to see her earn the trust of her squad mates. We desire to see her be triumphant and prove herself to be courageous. Of course, Spence's worldview is continually challenged as time goes on, which is interesting in and of itself. After all, a lead character whose beliefs and morals are placed under question and are even proven incorrect at times makes for some good fiction where our beloved heroic characters like Spencer must change as a person and experience a grand character arc. And this is something that in Skyward, Spencer has to do a lot of, as the narrative throws numerous reveals and curveballs her way that challenge her original viewpoints and perceptions about the nature of bravery and cowardice. And due to these trials in each book, there is a lot of engrossing drama worth getting attached to that culminates into some really explosive finales where our beloved heroes are put in a position where they can perform some awe-inspiring heroism that complements each book's thematic core. Because once again, this is a Brandon Sanderson series. Flawed yet heroic characters are his forte, and Spencer fits neatly with past Sandersonian protagonists. She is really good. The world building is great as well. In fact, the Skyward series has a lot of depthful lore and mysteries that are revealed to the reader at a consistent and rewarding pace. Mysteries with answers that fundamentally change how we perceive the narrative. And every single book from Skyward to Starsight to Cytonic has deep revelations answering series-long questions such as why did Spencer's dad flee the Battle of Alta, who are the Krell, and many other questions that I won't reveal here because I don't want to spoil anything, because spoil sports suck, just like Malazan Book of the Fallen. That was a joke, please don't leave angry comments. The Skyward series is a lot of fun as well. Yes, fun. That thing that many of us have forgotten about in the last few years, alongside our hope for Western democracy and the existence of Marvel's Avengers. Indeed, Skyward and its sequels are a shit ton of fun, mostly because the space combat action is superbly satisfying to read, Spence's antics are entertaining, and there's a very well-rounded supporting cast involving Spence's flightmates, as well as the advanced AI Spencer hides in secret called M-Bot, which all add their own intricacies and fun value to the story through their own various distinct personalities, and in M-Bot's case, comedic delivery. It is quite well written. Admittedly, with all this being said, the Skyward series does have a problem, most notably in how there are 3 separate novellas following Spence's flightmates that are necessary reading and honestly should have been included in the 3rd book, Cytonic, rather than be separate. While I understand that the mainline books are meant to primarily be Spence's story, the 3 novellas that take place before and during book 3 highlight how Skyward's narrative is bigger than just Spencer herself. And due to this, these novellas, despite being separate from book 3, are necessary reading to fully appreciate the scope of Skyward's story. And there are pieces of the plot that should have been present in book 3. Just saying. Still, with that caveat being said, Skyward is a great series and one that I easily recommend. While it has its one core issue of having plot-critical novellas separate from the 3rd book, the Skyward series is an exciting and high-flying piece of fiction with a sympathetic lead character, grand narrative arcs, rollicking action, a fast, frenetic pace, and a pervasive sense of fun, and much like Spencer, these books soar. And with that, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, subscribe, ring the bell, share, and leave a comment telling me what you think of the Skyward series and Brandon Sanderson in general, though make sure that these comments are spoiler-free. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, especially my high-tier ones, and David, Samantha, Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.